I know what you're thinking. Where the heck have you been? It's been 2 weeks since I put a show out, and even though I'm not on a rigid schedule to put out a show a week. It's kind of what I want to do, right? I know in the history of the show, I haven't been that uh, accountable for when I put out shows, and that lends itself a little bit to my own amount of laziness. Couple that with a mental illness here or there. Sprinkle in life, and you get a show that has done everything from once a day to, I don't know, 6 months off. So yeah, here I am. Let me tell you, I've been a little busy with work. I've probably struggled a little bit these past couple weeks. My plan was to, well, let me tell you. So what I have for you today is an interview, a little chat I had with a friend of mine. She's a charming young lady who struggles and deals with a lot of the same issues that I deal with and many of you deal with. And this kind of came out of a failed chat I had with Dave where, I think I mentioned that we recorded one, but it just sounded terrible. But in that interview, he tasked me with trying to get like a younger person's, I think I got this right, a younger person's view on like what things are like, or what like parents could do or not do, and to help out. And I may have this completely wrong, and Dave, you're welcome to call me out for my poor memory. But my goal was to sit down and chat with her and then get some insight as far as like what things that she wish her parents could have done better, or maybe signs that maybe they would have picked up on early, or as far as helping her express, come to terms with what she was dealing with. And then further on, once it was out of the bag, as it were, like what things they like she would like them to do, like how to check up on her, how to do this. And I don't know that we really got to that so much. I tried to broach the subject a little bit, and I think we talked about it a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked. Well, I shouldn't say as liked. That puts a lot of pressure on her in the situation. But it was a fantastic chat, and I learned so much about her, and I think you're really going to enjoy listening to her. And I hope some of what she puts out is valuable to you as it was to me, and hopefully you can glean a little something out of our conversation, which is the whole point of the show here, I guess, is to offer up help and support without offering up help and support, right? That's me. That's my shtick, I guess. Yeah, so we're going to have a little chat with her. It runs, I don't know, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. Hopefully I'm going to edit it pretty well. I don't know how the sound volumes are going to be, and hopefully it recorded well enough. We were sitting side by side in the car here. But everybody has different microphone holding standards and means and methods, and louder voice, softer voice, things like that. So we'll see. I'm determined to put this one out no matter what the quality is. So a little bit of a at your own risk, listen to this one maybe. Yeah. So here it is. This is my conversation with Jill. And I hope you enjoy it. And as things go, it is Saturday, February 27th, 2021. And as of this recording, I'm still depressed, but I'm not dead. Now we are.
Take two.
Okay, so I am sitting in my car outside a Target, which is not surprising to anybody who's been listening for a while. But this time I have a guest. I have my good friend Jill. Say hi, Jill.
Hi.
So, Jill is a young woman who has dealt with some mental health issues, and I kind of wanted to get her input and get kind of her side of the things. A while back, I had a guest on. I can't remember her name now, which is terrible. And I thought it was really. I got a lot of feedback on it that like, hey, this was really cool. So I wanted to have you come on, and you agreed graciously.
Yes, yeah.
So whatever you're comfortable sharing, like to start, like just introduce, like, hey, I'm Jill, and I'm whatever. I'm a ginger, and whatever.
That is a big part of my personality trait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Jill, and as he mentioned, I struggle a lot with depression and anxiety. Well, he didn't mention that explicitly, but you know. And I've been struggling with this for like, I think 3 years, but I didn't speak up about it until last February. And so that's kind of when this whole thing started.
Yeah.
And JP has been a really big helper to me, an ear to.
Yeah, I'm all about listening.
Yeah.
So.
And so, it's been difficult. I don't really know what to say. I've never done this before.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. So you said it like like 3 years ago, and you're 17 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would have been my 8th grade year. And so obviously middle school is very hard on everyone. And so I was trying to be, I had always been the top student in my class, and so I was trying to be valedictorian of my 8th grade class. And that was just a lot of really long weekends of studying, and like when I wouldn't get, like, even if I was getting really good grades, when I wouldn't get the exact grade, I'd be so hard on myself.
Yeah, okay.
And I had like a really, I don't want to say awful teacher, but I had a not good teacher who just was not, she didn't really like me. So it was a lot. And so that's kind of when this started.
Okay, so you were really driven in school, but that was all kind of self-perpetuated.
Yeah.
Like you didn't really have outside sources saying, "Hey, Jill, you gotta really nail this." It was.
Yeah, but it was also like, it was long building because of, I had always been the top student. Like my class was really, really small, and so there were only like 17 of us when we graduated.
Oh wow!
And and like I had been the top scholar, was the award that they gave out at the end of every school year. I had been the top scholar every year for 8 years. So it would have been 7 years when I was entering 8th grade.
So that kind of builds pressure.
Yeah.
On its own.
And then that was kind of like every kid in the class had a role that they played, right? And that was my role. And so there was a lot of pressure to be that, especially since there were 2 other people that really wanted it too.
Oh, okay. Competition.
Yeah. And so, and people in the class, they would like try to make me feel less smart than I actually was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they would, this is not a funny story, but kind of a funny story. I did end up getting valedictorian.
Woohoo. Okay.
And
cool.
The person who got salutatorian, in his speech, he said, valedictorian isn't the mark of who's the smartest, it's the mark of who worked the hardest.
Really? So it's like a jab.
Yeah. My mom and we looked at each other and we were like, thanks for that,
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of crappy.
So if that's reflecting on anything, that gives you a little insight into what it was like.
Yeah. I don't even, like I've talked about on this show a lot, like I don't remember school at all, right? And my mom just sent me a box of slides that she found in the basement. She's cleaning out the house, getting ready to move at some point. And she said, I have all these slides. And I thought, well, send them to me and I'll get them digitized.
Yeah.
And so I'll have them. and she sent along like a bunch of old report cards and stuff like that.
Oh.
And like I'm looking through it, and there's teachers' names. I don't remember teachers' names. I'm like looking at grades, and I was like, okay, A's, B pluses, great, but I don't
Yeah.
remember anything.
I mean, my school was very, very small and close knit, and I didn't actually start switching classes until 8th grade, but that was only for one class. We had one teacher for every subject except math, and then a math teacher.
Mm.
So I remember all my teachers very clearly.
Yeah.
Because I was with them all day, every
Every
day
day,
for
sure.
a school year. So
Yeah, but I no. Mm.
it's
No.
also my elementary, middle school was like started
Yeah.
about 8 years ago. So
Sure, yeah, it's a lot closer to you than mine is to me.
yeah.
Yeah, forever ago, a whole century ago. So, right. Well, last century, I
Yeah.
guess is a better way to say it.
I was like, that doesn't make sense. And then
No.
I remembered, oh, we're in the 2000s.
Yes. Okay. So, so then some big life changes happened, right? Like you guys moved.
Yes. So we moved to North Carolina. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Okay. We moved from North Carolina from California. It would have been the summer of 2019.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a really big move. 'Cause especially since we were looking at other towns like closer to where we were in California, and then my mom started school in North Carolina, and she was like, "Guess what? We're moving to
Yeah,
North
okay.
Carolina."
Wow.
And we were all on board, especially since I came from a small town in California, and I had always wanted to see more of the world, and so I was like, you know what? Let's do it.
Sure.
Why not?
Sure. Okay.
But yeah, that was proving to be a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah. I mean, you left friends, you left
Mhm.
family.
And I had a really, really good school that I went to starting my freshman year. It was like a high school college hybrid.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so I was taking college classes while still taking all my high school classes, which could be stressful, but I got to choose my college classes, so
Nice. Okay.
it was all stuff I was really interested in. So, yeah.
Okay.
And so it was sad to leave that behind,
Yeah.
and then to go to a really, really big school, which was bigger than anything I've ever known. Like, I had 17 kids, my graduating class in middle school, and then my freshman year had 60 kids.
Right. And now we're like, was it like
It's
600?
It's 600,
Yeah.
at least in my grade.
Yeah.
And that's just insane.
So as many kids in your homeroom maybe as your whole school
Yeah.
before.
Pretty
right?
much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then life kind of creeps in, right? And
Mhm.
everything is a little bit harder, a little bit weirder.
Yeah.
You know, we all have ups and downs normally, right? But you have a down day, and like, who do you turn to, right? Like, because like mom is wildly busy, dad's busy.
Yeah.
You got a sibling, but you know, maybe you don't have that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And so like, what did you do? Like, let's say fall of 2019. Like,
I just kind of, I don't know. I would just, so because I had been dealing with it for so long, and I never thought that I was valid. Like, I always thought when I was like 8th grade, I was like, you're not depressed. You just are having some down days, or life is hard right now, but you're not depressed. Other people are depressed. Look how hard they have it.
sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So I never thought I was valid. So I just kind of would like put on a smile all day, and then I would either sleep really early
Mhm.
or stay up really late and just kind of deal with it then.
Yeah.
So I carried that on for a long time. So that was what I was doing fall of 2019, I guess.
Mhm.
Was just kind of like, I'm super, super happy. But then everyone else would go to bed, and I'd be like, well, I guess we're not as happy as we thought.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and like at this point, you weren't like, had you talked to your folks about anything?
No.
So there was nothing going on as far as like therapy
Yeah.
or medication, or like talking to your doctor or
Mm-mm.
anybody.
No, and like I had taken depression screenings, but I would
Put the right answers.
I would talk myself out
Yeah.
of putting answers that were
Yeah.
accurate because I didn't think they were actually accurate.
Mhm.
So yeah, but I was gonna say, oh yeah, no, I would just always say I was tired.
Yeah.
Whenever it was more obvious than we thought that
Mhm.
than I thought that I was feeling down, you know.
Yeah, which is common, right? Because in a
Mhm.
way you do feel tired too, right? Like
Mhm.
you just want to shut down.
It's so draining.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And that was the thing. Like I never recognized it, like growing up and in my early adult years. Like I just always thought, like this is the way it is,
Yeah.
right? And I've said before, like the happy people were fake people.
Yeah.
Like nobody sees their friend and smiles like that, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I haven't seen you in so long. Like what is that? That's like
Mhm.
the fake people. And yeah, so okay, so then we're moving towards like summer of 20. Well,
I moved here summer of 2019,
yeah,
so it
so
would have been
summer
summer of 2020.
2020 when like things started getting really
Yeah.
heavy, right?
So what happened was it would have been February. We'll start there.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it would have been February of 2020, and I had to leave school early because I just couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Like it had gotten really bad.
hmm
And so my mom, there was only a few days that I could do that before my mom was like, something's going on
Yeah.
here.
Sure.
So I finally told her, I was like, I've been feeling really down lately, and this has been going on for a long time. So my mom is in the medical field, and so she actually gave me like an online depression screening, and my score was very high.
hmm
So she made an appointment, and I think I was in within 2 days. And they started me on meds, recommended me to a therapist and stuff
hmm
like that. So that was just starting everything. But that was a really rocky road because obviously depression meds are really, really hard to find the right ones.
Right. Yeah, and it takes so long
It-
to know if it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also my first therapist was not very good for me. She like never checked up on me, like if I missed sessions or whatever.
hmm
Or we took a break for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I think, and she never once checked in with us to be like, "Hey, are you
Oh.
doing okay?"
Yeah.
And just I don't know, we weren't really getting anywhere. So my mom actually made the decision to be like, she sat me down. She was like, "Hey, do you want to move therapists?" And I was like, "I don't know. I feel really bad because I've already put this time in
hmm
with this person." And she was like, "Let's look into other places." And so we found one, and I love her. She's really great.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like the trap, right? Like you feel like I've invested this time with them, and I gotta start over and
Yeah,
tell my story
that's-
again.
I know.
And
And every time like I go to the doctor or like when I was hospitalized and
Mhm.
stuff, like you have to tell every single person you come in contact with your story.
same story.
And
Yeah.
it's like it's almost scripted.
Yeah.
Like it's so monotonous.
Yeah. And actually, I just thought of this, but like when I had to tell my story over and over and over and over again, right? It like to me, it like normalized it to the point where like, oh, it's not that bad. Like maybe I wasn't as depressed as I thought I was
Yeah.
because I just like hear the story over and over and over again. And
For me, every time I would have to tell it, it would hurt me more.
okay.
'Cause with my depression, it is a very big like I'm failing.
hmm
So that's how it's hitting me the most is like I'm falling behind on school,
hmm
falling behind on cleanliness and stuff like that. So it's a very big like, oh, you're failing at life. So
Yeah.
every time I have to tell my story, it's just another reminder that like, hey, you're failing, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get that. So, so then I kind of want to jump around a little
Mhm.
bit, but I get into. You already mentioned your hospitalization, and that was mostly due to like suicidal thoughts. Is
Yeah.
that do I have that right?
So, I've actually been hospitalized 2 times.
Okay.
I don't think you knew about the second time, but
Mhm.
so like hospitalization is represented very differently in the public than
Mhm.
it is how it actually is,
Yeah.
especially since I was just in like short-term just crisis management hospitalization. So I thought it was going to be like just a few days of really, really intensive therapy.
Right.
But it's nothing like
No.
that. It's you go in, and honestly, in my experience, not the first time. First time was awful, and I never wanted to be hospitalized again. But the second time I went, the people who help you the most are the other patients.
Yep.
Yep. And I have some people, I know you're not technically supposed to do this, but I have some friends that I still talk to from the hospital.
Yeah.
And like, because it's just crisis management, so they completely switch up your meds like immediately when you get there. And I saw a therapist twice, and it was just to talk about when I could get discharged.
Yeah, right.
And we did group meetings twice a day, but it was just like DBT, and so it was nothing like I thought it would be. So the first time I was having really bad suicidal thoughts, but I wasn't entirely sure if I would act on them, but I wanted them to go away.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's just try it. Let's just go to the hospital. But the second time, I don't know how much detail I can go into.
Whatever you're comfortable. That's fine.
I don't want to like trigger anybody or anything like that.
No, we don't do trigger warnings
Okay.
on my podcast.
So
we're all just family.
Okay. So the second time, it was more of an impulsive decision. I was like, so all the meds in my house have been in a lockbox since I came back from the hospital. Would have been in April of 2020. So I just kind of walked upstairs. This would have been October. And I was just like, you know what? This is a good time to kill myself. And I was like standing there, and it was like the lock is on it. I could throw it on the ground a bunch to try and break it, but that'll make a lot of noise. So then I was like, I give up, and I just went and tried to break my arm, which is how I did most of my self-harm. And so, but then I didn't want to tell my mom because she would get, like, upset, you know, both, like, sad and angry. It was a weird mixture. And so I didn't want to tell her, but my arm was really hurting. So later that day, I think it would have been the evening, I told her what had happened, and she was like, do you need to go to the hospital? And I was like, I was thinking about it a lot. I hated going to the hospital, hated that whole experience, but I was like, the fact that I just like didn't say anything to anyone, like I just walked upstairs, and had it been unlocked, I would have
right,
something would have happened. Either they would have found me before I was dead, or I would have been dead.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, let's just give it one more try. So that was my second hospitalization.
Okay. But so
I don't remember what you originally asked me. I tend to go on rants.
no, I don't know either. But I remember that with your arm. I think the story I knew was that you'd fallen down the stairs.
So that actually was
That's
what
a
had happened.
different. Okay.
That was when I broke my arm. I actually found it really frustrating because the times I tried to break my arm, I didn't.
Okay.
But when I actually did break my arm, that was just me falling down the stairs, because I have never lived in a house with stairs.
Okay.
That's not as common in California.
Right. Okay.
Earthquakes and, you know, all sorts
Sure.
of things.
Sure.
And so I was walking down the stairs. I was wearing socks, and it's wood stairs. And I just slipped. And then my brain decided, you know, you don't want to dislocate your shoulder, so you should let go of the railing. So I let go of the railing, and in the process of doing that, I smacked my arm against the wall.
Okay.
And that broke it. But we just wrapped it in a bandage, and I still went to the mall with my friends.
Of course.
You know, as one does.
Yeah.
And then the next few days, I think I went to the hospital, and it was broken.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so self-harm.
Yes.
Right? So why break your arm? I mean, that seems like a lot. It seems like a long way to go.
Yeah. So I have always, like, okay, so I did think about cutting and stuff like that, but I can watch, like, medical dramas and stuff like that, and, like, they come in with, like, ribs poking out and, like, legs blown off and all this stuff, but I always have to look away when they're about to do the surgery and they cut the body.
Okay.
So anything puncturing your skin or anything like that, I can't do that.
Okay.
So I very quickly realized that was not going to be an option. And so I just decided, I was like, well, I don't have access to a lot of things. I did try, like, scratching and stuff. That worked, you know.
Right. Well,
it in quotations sometimes, but it was breaking, like, hitting my arm against the wall. Never actually broke it, but it did provide, like, a few days of pain.
which you preferred.
Yes. And I mean, I figured out that the reason is that, like, I didn't feel valid for my like mental
Mental,
stuff,
yep.
so I just wanted a physical representation.
Yeah.
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 That's probably the most common thing
Yeah, I
for
get that.
self-harm.
Yeah. So like self-harm I never got into.
Mm.
And I think historically, stereotypically, it's like a female thing.
Is it?
But I don't. I mean, that's not to say.
Oh
that-
no, I
that-
just didn't know that.
Yeah. But like I know, like I feel a little bit better when something hurts,
Yeah.
and like right now I'm dealing with all kind of leg things, and like
Mhm.
if I have to limp a little bit, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is I hurt. There's pain,
Mhm.
and I'm outwardly showing it.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Not just carrying it around and no one knows.
Yeah.
Right? Put on my big smiley COVID mask, and people say, "Oh wow, look at you!" And,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So I get that.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was in middle school and stuff. I always wanted, whenever I got hurt, for it to be way bigger than it ended up being.
Mhm.
And like I would be disappointed, like if I thought I broke my arm and it was just bruised, or if I like, and I always thought, oh, you're just a hypochondriac, but I think it has more to do with the fact that if you're injured, like physically injured, it's people see that.
Yeah.
You get recognized for that.
Yeah.
But no one even noticed I was depressed for 3 years.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, I was pretty good at hiding it, but still, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's not like attention seeking. It's
Mm-mm.
just that, like you were saying, like validating.
Yeah.
So like a physical injury, a physical ailment can be easily validated.
Yeah, and nobody, like, if you are wearing a cast, nobody says, like, oh, you're just doing that for attention.
Right. Right.
Like you were
Yeah.
saying. It's just, oh, she's faking it.
Yeah. Well, your arm's not really broken in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
The doctor just put the cast on for
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I want to talk a little bit more later about like your folks
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Because I'm thinking back to like the first couple nights, like when you would come over to the house
Yeah.
and we'd talk. And then there was one specific night when your folks were there.
Yeah.
And well, let's just talk about that
Yeah.
since I'm already here. So, like my impression when your folks were over was that clearly they were worried about you and they wanted things to be better, but there was a lot of frustration
Yes.
on their part. And I remember thinking at the time, like, okay, this is too much frustration.
Yeah.
And I was worried that you would start to feel like the whole, like I'm a burden
Yeah.
kind of thing.
So that definitely became a thing that I felt and still feel now. So for them, they had no signs
Mhm.
that I was depressed. It was just one day I came home from school and then everything changed.
Yeah, so big
very
shock.
suddenly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was, oh, like she has minor depression. It was almost very instantly, it was suicidal.
Yeah. Right.
And so, and then our life has not been the same since I started talking about it, you know, because it's become a major part of our family is finding me the right meds, finding me a therapist, like just them learning how to navigate having a child who struggles pretty severely with depression.
Mhm.
So they don't, I think they really, really care, but they have no idea how to show how they care.
Okay.
And I am not the best at communicating what I need
Mhm.
just because I don't know, you know?
Right.
And I also just hate speaking up for myself.
Sure.
So for them, I think it was just, I think there is my assessment is that there's probably a little bit of resentment that they hold because I have always been a reliable, like, I've always been the person who, like, they didn't have to worry if my schoolwork was getting done. They just didn't
Okay.
have to worry about
Sure.
me.
Okay.
You know, like, my brother, he had medical problems when he was younger and still does, but it's not as bad now. So I was a cornerstone. I was like,
Yeah.
I was just a pillar there, you know, like we love her and we can check in on her, but we don't have to worry about her.
Right. We can focus our attention
Mhm.
over this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I finally started talking about my depression, I think it was just, there might be a little bit of resentment there because, like, they lost that cornerstone.
Mm.
Now they have me to worry about constantly, you know?
Okay.
And so, and there's just their whole life changed. And I don't say that lightly because it really did. I don't know if you noticed anything, but like, my parents immediately became more stressed, more worried.
Yeah.
And just like, it was just everything. Like, school started slipping. My room was so incredibly messy. And I always had a messy room, but like so bad,
Mhm.
you know? And so just different, like, and like, I was not pretending to be happy anymore. So that's really hard for a parent to see.
Yeah. So I'm going to cut in though and say, like,
Mhm.
as a parent, you know, half of my girls, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, they're never a disappointment,
Yeah.
right? And you are not a disappointment to your folks,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't like saying it, but you're young, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what it's like to love your friends and love
Mhm.
your folks, and you know, and you're a teenager now, so you're like, you know, Dad, you're so stupid, or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
whatever stereotypical things, right? But like, when you have a child, it's like they're not ever a disappointment,
Yeah.
right? And like, if anything, like, I'm the disappointment, right? In through my eyes.
I definitely think that is a large part of their frustration, is that they feel like they messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm not a disappointment, but
Mhm.
it's really hard to think that because I'm a disappointment to myself.
Yeah.
That sounds so positive.
Well, it's true though. I mean, that's yeah.
Because, like I was saying earlier, I just put so much pressure on myself, and I can't meet that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to readjust, to recalculate, like, what is, I don't want to say doable, because
Yeah.
I don't want to put limits on it like that, but like, what is success now?
Yeah. Because we're living slightly below the bare minimum right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know what I want to say. You flummoxed me. Is that a word? That's a word, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not a dictionary.
No.
Come on,
Okay.
JP.
Okay. Yeah. So it's hard to say, like, this now is okay. Like, if I believe it's in you to, like, push yourself again and to
Mhm.
get the great grades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's clear that's not healthy, right? So just because you can doesn't mean it's the right thing.
It's
I
a
guess.
problem, though. Like, it's a really hard balance because getting good grades helps my mental health, but actively trying to get them hurts my mental health. So
Right.
then I don't get good, so I slow down from doing that to help my mental health, but then not getting good grades stresses me out.
It's
So
frustrating.
it's just a cycle
Yeah.
that there is an unclear balance.
Right. Yeah. Which you'll find. And I mean, think back a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and like, you've changed in the past year.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
I mean, I assume you're in a better place than you were then.
I actually am. I was just telling my parents the other day that I think my medicine is working.
Great.
I really do. And my suicidal thoughts are almost completely gone.
Awesome.
I know. So, and that made my mom cry.
Yeah.
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 So,
what are you taking?
I don't manage my meds.
Okay.
So they put it in a weekly thing,
Yeah.
and I take them.
You just take them. Sure.
But I'm on 3 depression meds, 1 main one and 2 helpers.
Yep.
And then another med. I have trichotillomania. I don't know if you know.
I don't know what that is.
That is compulsively doing things like chewing your nails, but for me it's pulling out my hair.
Okay. Yeah. It's okay. No, yeah.
So I have that, and so they put me on meds for that.
Okay.
So those are there's more depression meds. There's like 5 of them, and then like just other basic stuff,
Yeah.
but not pertaining to depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got this mix that seems like it's doing good things for you.
I think it's working. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge to have like the suicidal ideations kind
Mhm.
of fade away.
Can I talk about the
You can-
trichotillomania
yep,
for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I feel like it's really important to talk about stuff like that because nobody ever talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like mine was really bad. Like I'm still recovering. I have like bald spots on my head, which you can't. I'm
Okay.
working on really hard to cover them.
Yeah.
But like that's a really hard thing, especially as a teenager.
Yeah.
Like I haven't worn my hair down in 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So like it just is really hard on your self-image,
Mm-hmm.
But it's very common for people with depression. I think I looked it up and it was like 1 in 10 or something people struggle with it.
Okay.
And just nobody talks about it. And I think it's like I don't know. It can be really hard, but I think it's something people should stop beating themselves up for because I know I do.
Yeah.
Like it's compulsive. Like you can like for me, I was actively telling my brain like stop doing this,
Mhm.
but my hands would just
Keep doing it.
keep doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it mostly, do you know enough about it? Like, is it mostly those two things, like chewing your nails or pulling your hair out? Is there other?
Pulling your hair out. So it's right in line. It's like, it's not OCD,
Mhm.
but it's right next to it. If
Okay.
you were on the spectrum, so it's
Well, it's like
anything-
compulsion, right?
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
it's anything related to. I don't know exactly, but the way it manifests for me is like things don't seem like they should be there on my body. So like
Okay.
also like obsessively like getting stuff out of your face,
Okay.
like pimples and blackheads and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So things don't feel like they should be there, so I have to remove them.
Okay.
So like hair,
That includes hair.
yeah, hair, overgrown nails.
Mm-hmm.
Blackheads is a really big one.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's
Huh.
just, but it's the difference between, there's a difference, especially with like the face ones, between like just thinking it's really cool to get the stuff out of your face
Yeah.
versus like I've spent an hour or 2 hours in front of the mirror being like, okay, you really need to stop. But then I just keep going,
Really?
until my
Okay.
face is completely red and I'm like, okay, Jill.
Right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like
Oh.
wanting to stop, but you can't.
So, like, we'll talk about blackheads again,
Mhm.
right? So, like, if you have a blackhead and you work at it and you get it out, for most people, there's like a satisfaction in that, like, hey, I got this done.
There is a satisfaction, but it
But
goes
for
away.
you don't really get that.
No, so it does. There is a satisfaction. I like to like. This could sound so weird, but I like to like look at it and be like, "Dang, that was in my face,"
Okay.
But then it goes away, like after 3 seconds, and I'm like, "Okay,
Mhm.
I need another one."
Okay.
I've actually the way I've balanced that recently is I'm obsessively watching videos of people getting pimples and blackheads and ingrown hairs out.
Yeah, there's like what Dr. Pimple Popper,
Yeah,
right?
Stuff,
Is that
so just
thing?
stuff
Yeah.
like that, and like that's kind of satisfying. I just enough that I don't do it as much to myself.
Okay.
Because it's like things are not supposed to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and removing them.
Wow.
So I don't know. It's the meds that I'm on. I think they're just over the counter, but I don't know what they are. But the med that my doctor put me on is helping because it's been a long time since I've like pulled any hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
That's interesting because like I can feel like I'm with you, like I know what you're saying,
Mhm.
but I can't think of a situation for myself where I'm like that.
yeah.
Right? Like if my nails get a little long, I'll either cut them or chew
Yeah.
them off. But that's like I have brittle nails, so they'll break.
Yeah.
And it'll
Well,
hurt.
I started getting my nails done so that I would stop chewing them. But the
Okay.
downside is that if your nails come off, your nails are really thin.
Yeah.
So it's really hard because it's the moment the nails come off, you start chewing them again.
Oh.
So you have to. So I keep them on all the
You
time.
maintain it, yeah.
Instead of addressing the problem, we're just finding
Yeah.
we're finding a shortcut around it.
Sure. But I
Yeah.
mean you do what works.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. And they get to be pretty. So,
So, yeah.
That's always a plus.
Yes, I don't care that mine are pretty or not.
I don't know. I think you should. I think you would look really good with like long purple claws. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. No. Okay, so back to your folks. We were talking about your
Yeah.
folks there for a while. So, like, can you give some ideas on like things that maybe they have done that you really appreciate, things that maybe, and not in a way like, damn it, why aren't you doing this, Mom? But like
Yeah.
things like you wish like your folks would do or say, or
Mhm.
questions they would ask, things like that.
Yeah. So it's difficult because okay, so one thing that happens a lot is they check in on me a lot, which is important. Like you want people to be checking in on you to
Mhm.
make sure that you're not falling back
Right.
and unable to talk about it, you know? But like they'll check in on me about like school or something, and it's I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like my entire life has become my depression. Like I am
Mhm.
not Jill.
Right.
I am depressed Jill.
Right. Yep.
And that's, I know it's not, but it feels like that's all my parents see right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no real, like almost every discussion comes back to my depression, or like, are we getting caught up on school?
Okay.
Do you think we could clean our room soon? And they're being really, really understanding in, like, I've started to talk to them about why things are hard for me instead of just saying that they're hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're being really understanding. But that can be a really fine line to walk, because if you're too understanding, it's really easy for me to take that as an easy way out.
Yeah.
And so it's a very fine line, and I guess that's not very helpful. But
No, well, I get that. I mean,
It's-
it's like it's a fine line for them too, right? Like they want
Yeah.
to check in on you. They want to. You both want to see so-called improvement
yeah.
on what's going on. So like they probably feel like they have to push a little bit,
Yeah.
but there's a line there where you push too much,
Mm-hmm.
and like you just won't have it, right? You either
Yeah.
won't accept the pushing, or you just don't have it in you
Yeah.
to do something.
And I was gonna say something. I don't remember what I was gonna say. That's a shame. It's a
Yeah.
really good thing. I
Well,
remember it
it'll-
being a really good thing.
It'll come back.
But there's just it's a really it's just a fine line to walk, and it's, I don't know, just different things. It's really hard to put into words, which frustrates my parents, you know, because my mom, especially, she asks all the time. She's like, well, what can I be doing differently? You know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it's just, it's like, I don't have an answer for
Mhm.
that. I don't know.
Right.
You know, I'm still trying to figure out what I should be doing differently, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I don't know, especially since I often regret saying anything about my depression. Like, I'm glad I'm
Okay.
on meds.
Mhm.
I'm glad I'm in therapy, as much as I don't want to be on them or go to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I am, because I can tell it's working.
Mm-hmm.
But I miss being my own person.
Who you were before.
Yeah, and even though that wasn't me,
Mm-hmm.
but at least I was someone, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well,
like,
you're still someone.
I know, but now I've fallen into that role where I'm someone my parents have to worry about, and I always
They
when I
always
was,
worried about you.
I know, but when I was younger, like, I always wanted to be given more attention,
Mm-hmm.
because my brother, you know, he was sick, and he's just my brother, and he's the baby. He gets most of the attention, you know? And so I always wanted it. I was resentful of the fact that I didn't get as much attention as my brother did.
Mm-hmm.
But now I just want to be alone. I just
Yeah.
want to be free, you know? So like, I just got my license, and so that's really nice. Like, I have the freedom to, I don't have to rely on them as much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's too much.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I just wish I could go back to when they just didn't check up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're at the age where like independence is, if you're neurotypical, independence is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, so that makes sense. Okay, let me ask you, let's go back to 3 years ago.
Okay.
And can you think of anything like is there something like your folks could have said that maybe would have got you to open up? Because I'm sure there was lots of "How was your day at school today?"
Yeah,
kind of thing.
That was every night at the dinner table. Was "How was your day at school?" So growing up, my parents would always say, if you ever need to talk to us about anything, you can tell us anything,
Mm-hmm.
And I believed that, but it's really hard, especially when you're feeling depressed, to be the one to reach out.
Right. Yeah.
That takes a lot
Mm-hmm.
of energy, of courage, of anything like that to finally say, hey, I need help. And so I wish when 3 years ago, like I wish my parents would have taken me out to or my mom or something. Just one parent would have taken me out to dinner or something. We could have done a little fun day
Mm-hmm.
without my brother, without all of these different people,
Mm-hmm.
and it could have just been us, you
Yeah.
know? And making that a more common thing, maybe once a month or something. I wish that was something we did, because if we had done that, I can see myself over time dropping little hints,
Okay.
and then eventually being able to build up the courage to say, hey, or just dropping enough little hints that they
Pick up on something.
pick up on it.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know?
So
And
some situation that's not the chaos of a family of
Yes.
four with both parents. Your dad was working. I don't know what your dad does.
My dad works in IT.
Okay.
I don't know what my dad does.
Okay.
I just say that he works in IT.
Okay. So both parents working.
Yes, and my mom had a very, very busy job, and she was going to school,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad worked 45 minutes away.
Okay. So that's a lot of chaos and
Yeah.
a lot of things to get done
Yes.
in the 4 hours you have every evening
Mhm.
or whatever. Okay.
And so I just my advice would be dedicating some time to your child, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But making sure it's things that they like to do. Don't it's important to introduce them to stuff that you like to do, because that's how you build a relationship, is seeing what each other likes to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to reach your child,
Mm-hmm.
if your child loves video games,
Mm-hmm.
try and play the video game with them if they want. Obviously it has to be something they want to do.
Right. Right.
But try and find little instances where you can give them your full attention.
Mm-hmm.
Just for a little bit. And try and connect with them on the things that they like. Because once you do, pick a TV show you guys want to watch
Mm-hmm.
together. That was a big thing. My mom and I did that. And that kind of slowly built up a better relationship for us. And just pick something that you can connect with them on. And then over time, they'll start to open up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, because something that I struggle with is, do you think if your mom or your dad was openly struggling with a mental illness, do you think that would have helped you identify and maybe open up more? Because I worry my kids, they know that I struggle and that I deal with things.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry that they'll feel like they can't pile on to that.
Yeah. So that's a difficult, again, it's another fine line, because I can't relate it as much to my parents, because they did struggle with depression a little bit, but like you said, if they did, I had no idea if they
Okay.
did. But this is probably wrong of me to assume, but I'm going to assume that they probably didn't struggle with it on any major level because when I started talking about it, they didn't really know what to do.
Right.
So that's just my guess, I guess. But I do know that when I moved to North Carolina, I met a lot more people who were open about their depression.
Okay.
Mainly my peers and stuff. And so that made me realize that I might be struggling with depression, but at the same time, it also kind of served to not validate me.
What do you mean?
Because, like, I had people who were cutting.
Okay.
I had people who, like, one of my friends, like, said they slept with a knife under their pillow.
Okay.
You know, or just stuff like that. Like, one of my friends had a drinking problem. You know, all these different things that, like, is how their depression manifested. And I was not self-harming. I was not
Right.
I was not doing anything, you know, so I felt like you're if you have depression, it's not that bad.
Right. Yeah.
So
okay.
it's a difficult line. I think it's really important to be open about your struggles. I think it is, because the more normal it is in your house to struggle, the more normal the kids, it gives your children a little bit of normalcy in their and a validity in their mental illness. But at the same time, like, you have to be, I don't think you should hide stuff, but you have to be careful about the way you go about it, because it has to be a thing. It has to feel like it's not your thing, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not. But, like, how do I describe this? Like, okay, I'll take my brother being sick, for example. Him being sick, like, was his thing.
Okay.
Like, he was the child that, there's no other word to put it. He was the child that was sick. And that wasn't his whole personality, right? But, like, if I was hurt or something, or I'll just say, like, when I was first struggling with my mental health, he was the sick one. And so it was like, oh, well, we already have one of those in the family.
Yeah.
I don't need to add another one.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, as much as we don't like to believe that we do, everyone kind of falls into a role, and it's very easy to think, well, that role's already taken.
Okay.
So it's a really, I feel like I'm just rambling, but it's a really fine line, because you want them to know that it's okay to be struggling, but you also have to be careful that they don't think that they're not valid because of how much you're struggling.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. That makes sense. So, Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that makes sense. I can't spit it back at you in my own words, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It all falls back to that validity thing that I was talking about, that I struggled with for a long time, is that, like, it's really easy to compare your struggles to everyone else around you. That's a very common thing. And so, like, if you look at all these other people around you, like, people have been hospitalized, people who self-harm, people who do all these different things, and, like, you may not be doing those things, or people talk about their depression and they talk about it in a way that doesn't resonate exactly with you. It's very common for people not to realize that depression shows in so many different forms for so many different people.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just one thing. And so, like, it's really easy to fall into it must not be bad enough to talk about it.
Yeah. Right.
So that's just the whole thing, is, like, when you start to compare yourself and your mental illness to other people, you start to diminish it.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
you can possibly diminish them. There's both sides to that.
Yeah. I mean, there's validity in just letting everybody have their own story and listening and not comparing.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's, that you get into. I mean, there's so many different things like that. Like the rich and famous get depressed too, but like so many
Yeah.
people don't want to believe. What do they have to be sad about? Kind of
Mhm.
thing. And like Robin Williams,
Mhm.
right? Like there's just, it's not worthwhile to compare one person to another
Yeah.
person.
And the thing I noticed, not just among me, but among friends and family members, is if you are comparing yourself in your mental health to other people and you are like making excuses as to why you don't have it or why it's not that bad, you most likely are struggling with it.
Yeah.
That's just like that's a pretty good sign, you
Mhm.
know? Because if you're the thought is there for a reason.
Mhm.
The thought that you might be struggling is there for a reason, so listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think about that, and I think about you in your situation, and you talk about your peers and friends that you have who are struggling. And like I have so much like hope for all of you, because I mean, you're 17 and you know this much about your mental health right now. You probably don't feel like you know that much, but I was 37
Yeah.
and didn't know as much as you know now, right? And I mean, I guess this can be good and bad, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have the years of perspective that I have to be able to maybe put things in a good order.
Mm-hmm.
And every little thing to a teenager can be huge,
Yeah.
right? And especially something as monumental as mental illness. But you've got people that you can talk to, and you're able to identify what's going on
Yeah.
with you. And when I think about when you said that the second time you went to the hospital was like you recognized what was going on,
Yeah.
and hey, this is something that maybe I should go do.
Yeah.
My first experience wasn't good, but it seems like it's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Like when I was decided to kill myself, there was none of that. It was just, okay, let's do it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And there wasn't any like, oh, this is bad. And I kind of credit a little bit more to your being able to talk about it more, and you're able to take that little step back and say, hey, okay, this is out of control.
One thing I learned later on after all of this stuff is that I don't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to live like this.
Right.
And so that is what has kind of like all those times that I did think about, like, okay, well, why don't we just kill ourselves, Like, I often actually, because I chose pills as the preferred method, I guess is the way you would phrase that, because there's no, like, cutting of the skin. There's not as much to clean up.
That was a mess, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I chose that, but I often thought about, like, well, what if I just take the pills and then a few minutes later call the cops?
Okay.
And just I don't know if you've ever heard like that perspective before, but like take the pills and then call the cops and tell them, hey, I just took a bunch of pills. They send an ambulance over and now I'm in the hospital. And I don't know why, but I think it has something to do with the fact that it's like, I don't want to live like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if I try to kill myself,
Mm-hmm.
I might get more intensive treatment. I might get what I need.
If I make this dramatic gesture, then it'll be obvious, like, to everyone else and even myself, like, hey, this is something we need to apply more energy towards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess I learned that later on, and I was like, okay, so we know you don't actually want to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I realized that, as hard as it was, it like started to move me towards getting away from suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know how to say it. Once I realized that I didn't actually want to die, I like I just made the decision that I wasn't going to.
Okay.
I guess. It was, I don't know if that's how it works for everyone else, but for me it was just like a split kind of decision. It was like, if I don't want to die, so why should I plan to?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean like there are still nights where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I have all these thoughts racing through my head, like, why don't you just jump out the window?
Mhm.
You know, or like, let's just do this. Let's grab the car and crash it. You know,
Yeah.
all these different,
Right.
there's all these different things, but it's intense and it's awful. And it's like, I'm just sitting there. Like,
Mhm.
if I move, I'll do something, you know? But I just keep thinking, like, there's so many things you want to do.
Yeah.
And, like, you want to see yourself be happy again.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see your brother grow up.
Mhm.
And, you know, just different things like that. Like, there's so many things you want to see. You don't actually want to die,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
That's an important perspective to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that you have it.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we're going to wrap up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you could just grab someone who is struggling and tell them something of value. I'm putting you on the spot here. I know. But,
yeah.
like, what would you want someone to know the most?
I think what I would say is, if you could, like, so they always talk about people when you are, like, dying, you see a flashback of your life, right?
Sure.
So if you could completely step out of your life and just watch what's going on, like, as if you're just, like, watching it as a movie, right? And you can take a different perspective and see, are you happy? Are you genuinely enjoying your life? Are you, like, it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing.
Mhm.
Are you living the life that you want to? Or not even just that, because, like, I have dreams of, like, moving places and, you know, traveling and all these stuff. But, like, in your day-to-day life, are you content with the life that you're living?
Mhm.
And if you're not, like, that's not an immediate sign that you have depression. But if you're not, then it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing around you. Like, address that. Make your, it's hard, especially if you do have depression, but that is a sign that you want to change.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
you not necessarily want to, but it's time to look into changing your, like, the way you're living your life. Like, reach out, maybe get a therapist, maybe get checked for meds, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think the hardest part for me was, I feel like I'm missing out on my life. Like, these are, like, everyone talks about, like, your teenage years are some of the best years of your life. And maybe it's not, maybe it is, but you only live them once.
Right.
I can't go back in time. And I often feel like I don't get to live them because of my mental illness.
Yeah. So, like, the perspective side of that is like, you're on your journey, right?
Yeah.
And what you do is who you are and where you're headed. And every little thing creates you for who you are.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, we have movies that tell us, like, hey, this is like a romantic life to have. Wouldn't this be wonderful? We've, you know, music and books and TV shows and all that kind of stuff. Right. And really, you're going to look back and say, hey, you know what? I went through that and look where I am today.
Yeah.
I'm 30-year-old Jill, and like, this is pretty awesome where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Right. And you won't be glad that you went through what you went through, but you'll realize that, hey, this life has been doing okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
That's the hope. Yeah.
yeah. So at least that's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, okay. Well, this has been great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Yeah. I've actually very much enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I find that I talk a lot.
Yeah. So this is more upbeat than the few talks we had before. Right, when we would go for walks down the trail.
I can tell I'm doing better.
Yeah, I can too. And
That's
good.
good to
Yeah,
hear.
that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
So, okay.
If you ever need a person to come on last minute or something, I would love to be on here again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll come up with some better questions.
Your questions were good.
So, Okay, cool. All right. That's it. I'm going to close this out on my own
Okay.
later. So,
Bye.
okay. Okay, so there was the chat. I hope you liked it. I hope it was good for you. I apologize. I didn't actually get to apologizing in the opening about the delay in getting another episode out. So I hope everybody is doing well. Hit me up. Send me a message, jamolke@gmail.com, facebook.com/jamolke, @jamolke on Twitter and Instagram, www.jamolke.info. That's JAMOALKI. And or text me, +1 248 648 1419 in the US and worldwide on WhatsApp. If you're in the US, you don't need the +1, obviously. Or naturally, maybe it's not obvious. Hopefully next week I have a show to put out, and I'll get a little bit more into what's been going on the past couple weeks and whatnot. I don't want to bore you with that here. So, yeah, everybody be safe and be well. Thanks.